The wind carried dust and memory alike that evening. As the sun melted into the horizon, a lone rider appeared, hat tilted low, shadow stretching long over the dying light. Nobody in Willow Creek had seen him in 10 years. But when Mary Thompson looked up from her porch, the book slipped from her trembling hands. She knew that silhouette. Only one man rode with that kind of silence. Daniel Grayson. The creak of the wooden gate echoed louder than it should have. Daniel dismounted slowly, boots sinking into the dry earth. His coat was frayed, hat dusted by countless miles, but his eyes, those gray, stormy eyes, still carried the same weight she remembered. "Evenin', Mary," he said softly, voice rough like old whiskey. Mary froze. Her breath hitched as memories collided. Moonlit nights, whispered promises, and the morning he'd left without a word. "You came back," she managed to say, voice almost a whisper. He nodded, eyes flickering toward the small wooden house behind her. "Didn't reckon I'd be welcome." A faint smile touched her lips and sad brittle. "You reckon right." But even as she said it, her heart betrayed her. Because 10 years hadn't dimmed what she felt, it had only buried it beneath pain. A small voice broke the silence. "Pa, is this where you lived?" 2 little boys and a girl stood behind Daniel, his children. Their faces carried his eyes, his quietness. Mary stared at them, and something inside her chest twisted painfully. "Yes," Daniel said, glancing at her. "This is where I learned everything that mattered." Mary knelt down, forcing a smile. "Hello there, you must be tired." The smallest boy, maybe 5, clutched a wooden toy horse. "Are you the lady from Pa's stories?" Daniel's jaw tightened. "Tommy." But it was too late. Mary's eyes met his, full of questions. Stories, he'd spoken of her. She rose slowly, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "You should all come inside. The wind's colder than it looks." The old house hadn't changed much. The same scent of cedar and old memories filled the air. A photograph still hung crooked above the fireplace. A younger Mary beside her father's horse, smile bright as morning. Daniel's eyes lingered on it. "You kept it," he murmured. Mary busied herself lighting a lamp. Didn't have the heart to throw it away. Silence stretched between them. Comfortable once, now sharp and fragile. The children settled near the fire, whispering softly, their laughter breaking through the tension like sunlight through clouds. Daniel finally said, "Their mother was passed 3 winters ago." Mary froze mid-step. "I'm sorry," she whispered genuinely. He nodded. "Been hard since. Thought maybe this place might give 'em something better than I could." Her heart ached. "You brought them here for me?" "For us," he said quietly, "for what was left behind." Later that night, after the children had drifted off to sleep, Daniel stood by the fire. His shadow flickered against the walls, tall, worn, haunted. Mary poured 2 cups of coffee, the same way she had years ago. When she handed him one, their fingers brushed, and for a brief second the years between them vanished. "You shouldn't have left," she whispered. "I know." "Then why did you?" He looked into the fire, eyes distant. "Because loving you scared me more than losing everything else." Her heart stopped. All these years she'd thought he stopped caring. But truth was cruelly different. "You fool," she breathed, tears glimmering. He gave a sad smile. "Yeah, that's what she used to call me." As the wind howled outside, Mary found herself staring at the cowboy she once knew, now a man burdened by loss and guilt. The years had carved lines around his mouth, but his eyes still searched for the girl he'd left behind. "I waited, Daniel," she said softly. "Every night for a year, then I stopped counting." He removed his hat, setting it gently on the table. "I didn't deserve you then." "And now?" He met her gaze steady. "Now I just hope you'll let me try again." Mary turned toward the window where the moonlight fell across the floor. The house, once cold, felt alive again. She didn't answer it, not yet, but the silence between them was no longer empty. The next morning, sunlight spilled through the curtains, touching the faces of the sleeping children. Mary stood at the stove, making biscuits just like her mother had taught her. Daniel entered quietly. "Smells like old times." She smiled faintly. "You remember those?" "Every one of them." For a moment it felt as if nothing had changed, as if 10 lost years could be mended by coffee and morning light. But Mary knew better. Time left marks you couldn't see. "Why now, Daniel?" she asked, "after all this time?" He hesitated. "Because I ran out of excuses. And because the only place that ever felt like home was wherever you were. Her breath caught again. This time she didn't hide it. Later that day, as the children played outside, Mary found an old envelope in Daniel's saddlebag. Her name written in his handwriting and faded unopened. She called out, "You never sent it." He froze, eyes widening. "You weren't supposed to see that." She opened it anyway. The letter spoke of fear, love, and mistakes. The confession of a man who thought he didn't deserve happiness. Tears blurred her vision as she whispered, "All this time." Daniel stepped closer. "I wanted to say it right, but I never found the words." Mary looked up at him, really looked. And for the first time in years, the ache in her chest eased. "You just did," she said. That evening, they stood outside as the sun dipped below the hills once again. The children chased fireflies nearby, laughter filling the warm air. Daniel turned to her. "I know I can't change the past, but if you'll let me, I want to build a new one, for them, for us." Mary watched the horizon, then him. "You're still that stubborn cowboy I remember." "Maybe," he said with a grin. "But this time I ain't riding away." She smiled, truly smiled, for the first time in years. And as the last light of sunset bathed them in gold, she whispered, "Then stay." He took her hand, rough and warm, and for a moment everything felt right again. The night after Daniel promised to stay, the wind shifted. Some said the prairie carried whispers when it changed. Mary heard one that sounded like trouble. Morning came bright and still. The house smelled of biscuits and wood smoke. Daniel fixed the corral fence while the children ran through the tall grass, laughter echoing across the field. Mary watched from the porch, a faint smile on her face, the kind that hides a question, because the ground Daniel worked on wasn't just earth. It was the same land her father had died defending. When he straightened, sweat on his brow, she asked quietly, "Did you ever wonder why this house stayed empty so long?" He looked up, thought maybe the past scared folks off. "It does," she said, "especially when it refuses to stay buried." By noon, a rider came from Willow Creek Post. Mail for Daniel Grayson. Daniel's hands trembled as he opened the envelope. Inside was a single sheet, a name written in red ink, Eli Turner. Mary saw his face pale. "Who is he?" "Man I used to ride with," Daniel murmured. "Before the war, before everything." She waited. He wasn't the forgiving kind. The children ran toward them then, saving him from more questions. But Mary noticed how Daniel's eyes kept scanning the horizon after that, like a man expecting ghosts. That evening, thunder rolled over the plains. The children slept in one room. Mary stood by the window, watching lightning fork through the sky. Daniel came beside her, the lamplight painting gold across his face. "You're hiding something," she said softly. He didn't answer. "When you left 10 years ago, it wasn't just fear of love, was it?" He sighed, heavy. "No, it was what I'd done. I robbed a bank with Eli. Tried to back out, but shots were fired. A man died. I ran before they could hang me." Mary's breath caught. "So that's what chased you?" He nodded. "And he'll come looking. Eli never forgets debts." Outside, the wind howled harder, rattling the shutters, as if the prairie itself had heard the confession. The next morning, Daniel packed his saddlebag. "You're leaving again?" Mary demanded. "Just going to town, to set things right." She stepped in front of him. "You can't run from this anymore, Daniel, not again." "I ain't running," he said. "This time I'm ending it." The children watched from the porch, confused and afraid. Mary's heart cracked again, the same pain. Different. "If you don't come back," she began. He touched her cheek gently. "Then tell them their father tried to be better." The saloon doors swung open to a hush. Every man turned to look at the stranger in a dusty coat, a ghost from the wanted posters. At the far table sat Eli Turner, older, crueler, a scar running down his cheek. "Well, look who found a conscience," Eli sneered. "You owe me, Grayson." "I came to pay it," Daniel said, "all of it." Eli laughed. "You think a few dollars and an apology fix a bullet in my leg?" Daniel's hand hovered near his holster, but his voice stayed calm. "No, but maybe it ends the running." The room held its breath. Then at the sound of a gun cocking, the shot split the silence. Eli's pistol smoked, but Daniel's was faster. When the dust settled, Eli lay bleeding, rage fading from his eyes. Daniel knelt beside him. "I never meant for any of it," he whispered. Eli's lips curled in a half-smile. Too late for meaning. He died before the thunder rolled again. Daniel stood in the rain, hat low, feeling no victory. He'd killed a man to save his family, but the weight of it felt like chains. When he rode back, dawn was breaking. Mary stood on the porch, eyes wide. "Daniel, your arm!" "Just a graze," he said. "It's over." She pressed a cloth to the wound, tears sliding silently. "You said that once before." He took her hands. "Not like this. I turned myself in. Sheriff's giving me a chance to work it off, rebuild the town's fences. I'll be here. I'm done running." The children came running out, hugging his legs. For the first time in years, Daniel felt peace, rough, imperfect, but real. That evening, as the sun bled over the fields, Mary joined him by the fence. "So what now, Cowboy?" she asked softly. He smiled. "Now I fix what's left, one board, one day, one heart at a time." She rested her head on his shoulder. "Maybe some things can be rebuilt." He looked at her and really looked in and said, "Maybe some things were never broken, just waiting." The horizon glowed gold once more, the wind quiet for the first time in years. And as the children's laughter carried across the ranch, Daniel Grayson knew he'd finally come home. A man may bury his sins beneath 1,000 sunsets, but the wind don't forget. It just waits, patient as God, sharp as justice. The story begins with the sound of the wind, restless again, sweeping across the prairie like it's carrying bad news. A week had passed since the gunfight. The townsfolk whispered when Daniel's name came up, half calling him a hero, half calling him a killer. The sheriff kept his word, letting Daniel work his sentence on the town's fences and stables. But not everyone was ready to forgive. One morning, a man spat near Daniel's boots. "You think one dead outlaw makes you clean?" Daniel wiped the sweat from his brow and said quietly, "No, sir, just makes me honest." Mary watched from a distance. Every hammer strike on those fences felt like a prayer, one nail at a time for the sins he was trying to mend. At dusk, a stranger rode into Willow Creek. Black hat, long duster, eyes like the edge of a knife. The saloon went quiet when he spoke. "I'm looking for Daniel Grayson." The bartender froze. "What's your business with him?" "Let's just say I'm here to collect something Eli Turner never could." Word reached Daniel before the sun rose again. He didn't tell Mary, just loaded his revolver and stared out toward the ridgeline. The wind was picking up again. That night, Mary found Daniel sitting by the porch, sharpening his knife. "You're leaving again," she said, not asking but knowing. He hesitated. "Someone's coming, Mary. Eli's brother, maybe worse." Her voice cracked. "Every time you fight your past, it comes back bleeding." "I know," he said softly, "but if I don't stop this, it'll bleed into our home." Tears welled in her eyes. "And what am I supposed to tell the children if you don't return?" He looked up at her, eyes tired but clear. "Tell them their father finally faced the wind." Morning broke red, the kind of sunrise that feels like a warning. Daniel rode to Broken Ridge, a barren stretch where the world looked carved from bone. The stranger was waiting, a silver revolver gleaming at his hip. "You killed my brother," he said. Daniel's voice was steady. "He left me no choice. Then I'll leave you none." They circled each other, slow, deliberate. The wind howled through the canyon, carrying echoes of the past. Then came the draw. 2 shots. Silence. A hawk screamed overhead. The stranger fell. Daniel staggered but stayed standing, and his shoulder burning, blood staining his shirt. He holstered his gun, looked up at the sky, and whispered, "Let this be the last." He rode home in the dark, barely conscious. Mary met him halfway down the trail, lantern in hand, her face streaked with tears. "Daniel!" she cried, running to him. He smiled weakly. "Told you I'd face it." She pressed her hand against the wound. "And now?" "Now, maybe the wind can rest." The next few days were slow and quiet. Daniel healed, working beside Mary, teaching the children to ride, to mend, to live without fear. For the first time, laughter filled the house, not haunted but whole. Weeks later, a letter arrived from the sheriff. It read, "All debts paid. Case closed. The name Daniel Grayson is cleared." Mary read it aloud under the same oak where they'd once said goodbye. Daniel smiled faintly. "Didn't think I'd ever see my name clean again." She took his hand. "You didn't just clean it, you redeemed it." He looked across the prairie, golden under the setting sun, and whispered, "Then maybe I can finally stay." That night, as the stars bled across the sky, Daniel sat with his children on the porch. He told them stories, not of guns or guilt, but of courage, love, and second chances. Mary leaned against the doorframe, smiling quietly. When the youngest asked, "Pa, what's the wind saying tonight?" Daniel looked out over the horizon and replied, "It's saying we made peace, son. It's saying we can sleep now." The camera pans upward and the moon rising over the endless plains. The wind soft, forgiving at last. The camera opens on endless fields of golden wheat, swaying beneath a burning orange sky. The same wind that once carried gunfire and grief now hums softly across the land. A wooden sign stands at the gate of a sprawling ranch. Grayson Homestead, Eastern 1875. The sound of laughter echoes across the field. Two young riders racing horses along the fence line. Their laughter feels familiar. It's the echo of Daniel's voice, alive in the next generation. Inside the barn, a man in his late 50s, strong but gentle-eyed, sharpens a horseshoe. His hair is silver now, his skin weathered by time, but it's him. Daniel Grayson. Mary walks in, apron dusted with flour. Eyes still as kind as they were years ago. "You're up early again," she says softly. Daniel smiles. "Wind woke me, said there's work to do." She chuckles. "The wind still talks to you?" "Always will," he replies, "just speaks gentler now." They share a quiet breakfast on the porch, the sun spilling across their land. Acres of peace Daniel once believed he'd never deserve. Their eldest son, Sam Grayson, now a grown man, prepares to leave for the nearby town of Clearwater. He's opening a small horse trading business, his father's trade reborn in honest hands. Before he mounts his horse, Daniel hands him a weathered revolver wrapped in cloth. "I don't carry it anymore," Daniel says, "but it's part of our story. Keep it to remember what a man can overcome, not what he can destroy." Sam nods, his eyes misty. "I'll make you proud, Pa." Daniel places a hand on his shoulder. "You already have." Later that evening, Daniel walks to the hill overlooking the ranch, the same spot where he once promised Mary he'd never run again. He kneels beside a small wooden cross marked with the name of the sheriff, who once gave him a second chance. "Reckon I kept my word, old friend," he murmurs. "Built something worth keeping." A gust of wind rolls over the grass and soft, approving. In that sound, Daniel imagines all the voices he lost, the sheriff, Eli, his own guilt, finally silent. As the sun dips, a rider approaches from the horizon, a woman cloaked in dust and mystery. Daniel watches as she dismounts, her face half hidden beneath her hat. "Mr. Grayson," she calls out, "name's Clara Turner." The name hits like a quiet thunderclap. "Turner?" he repeats. "Yes," she nods. "Eli was my uncle. My father told me you were the man who changed his brother's life and ours." Daniel stares, uncertain. She continues. "He said you faced him like a man, not with hate, but mercy. My family's been trying to find you for years." She hands him a small box. Inside is a silver badge engraved with the words, "Justice and Redemption, Sheriff Eli Turner." Daniel's hand trembles. "I don't deserve this." Clara smiles. "That's exactly why you do." Then she rides away, leaving only the dust and the sound of the wind behind her. Years pass again. The ranch prospers and the Grayson family name becomes known across the county, not for blood, but for kindness, integrity, and grit. But time, as always, keeps moving. One spring evening, as wildflowers bloom across the hills, Mary falls ill. Daniel sits beside her bedside, holding her hand. She whispers, "Promise me you'll keep living even when I'm gone." He squeezes her hand gently. "Don't talk like that, Mary." Her lips curve into a faint smile. "I'm not afraid. You gave me the life I dreamed of." As the sun sets, the light paints her face gold, and she drifts away peaceful. Daniel presses his forehead to hers. "The wind's taken you," he whispers, "but I'll still hear you every morning." Now Daniel is old, gray-haired, slow-moving, but his eyes still fierce with life. He spends his mornings teaching his grandchildren how to ride, how to listen to the wind, how to build instead of destroy. One night, as the stars spill across the sky, his granddaughter asks, "Grandpa, were you ever afraid?" Daniel smiles faintly. "Every day, but fear ain't the enemy. Running from it is." She nods softly, then curls against him. The fire crackles, the night hums like a lullaby, and for the first time in years, Daniel feels peace not just in the land, but in his soul. Months later, Daniel saddles his horse before dawn. He rides alone wearing his old hat, coat faded, heart strong. He rides past the wheat fields, the barn, the stream, every corner of the life he built. When he reaches the ridge, he stops, looking over the horizon as the sun breaks free. He whispers, "Mary, it's a good morning." The wind answers, soft and kind, the same voice that's followed him all his life. Daniel tips his hat, smiles, and rides toward the rising sun. As his figure fades into the light, The wind carries one last line across the prairie. Some men chase redemption their whole life. Others build it one sunrise at a time. Years later, his grandchildren run the Grayson Ranch. The sign now reads, "Grayson and Sons, honest trade, honest hands." Inside the house, an old photograph hangs by the fireplace. Daniel and Mary on their porch smiling under the endless sky. Outside, the wind hums through the wheat once more. Not restless, not angry, just remembering.